brutal alien murder of 18-year-old human girl Mira Mason on a remote colony planet just ignited the fuse on the galaxy's biggest powder keg. Within hours of the news reaching Earth, the UES Retribution, the most advanced warship in the human fleet, departed on a mission to make the alien killers pay with blood and fire. For 30 years, humans and the cat-like Caitians maintained an uneasy peace as they competed for control of resource-rich border worlds. But the shocking slaughter of an innocent human girl by Caitian soldiers shattered the fragile status quo. Mira's brother Marcus, a lieutenant in humanity's elite special forces, travels to the Caitian homeworld to demand justice. But the Caitian Emperor Uko denies responsibility and accuses humanity of warmongering. It's clear both sides have been preparing for war. Uko declares war on Earth, revealing a vast Caitian war fleet hidden on the far side of their empire, and alliances with other powers who fear humanity's growing strength. The sudden attack leaves Earth's leaders reeling. Human colonies across the frontier fall to the Caitian onslaught. As the galaxy descends into chaos and destruction, all of humanity cries out for vengeance. Marcus is given command of the Retribution and ordered to take the war to the enemy. He assembles a crew of Earth's most skilled warriors and sets out on a mission of retribution against the Caitians. But even as the ship departs, mysterious intel emerges suggesting Mira's murder was a false flag attack. Someone pushed humanity and the Caitians into this war. As the Retribution crew fights behind enemy lines, hunting for clues about Mira's killers, the survival of the fledgling human interstellar empire hangs by a thread. Marcus and his soldiers are all that stand between humanity and an alien armada. If they succeed, humanity may survive its first real galactic war. If they fail, Earth dies. The Retribution struck back against the Caitian onslaught, Marcus barking orders as the ship shuddered under the impacts. "Evasive maneuvers! Keep our guns on those battleships!" The human ship wove between the massive Caitian dreadnoughts, dodging plasma blasts and returning fire. Marcus squeezed the armrests of his command chair, eyes blazing. They just had to hold out a little longer. Suddenly, the Retribution sensors lit up with new contacts, more ships dropping out of hyperspace. But they weren't Caitian. Marcus stared in disbelief as gleaming silver ships, elegant and deadly, appeared on the battlefield. The Zithran fleet had arrived. In moments, the tide turned as the Zithran ships tore into the Caitian fleet with weapons of unimaginable power. The Caitians, caught off guard, fell back in disarray under the onslaught. "Sir, we're being hailed by the Zithran flagship," the comms officer reported. Marcus nodded. On screen. Zorax's face appeared, his features unreadable. "Commander Mason, it seems you've chosen to trust us." "Don't make me regret it," Marcus growled. "The Caitians are in retreat. We will deal with them." Zorax's eyes gleamed. "Continue your mission, Commander. Find the truth. The fate of your species may depend on it." The transmission cut out and Marcus watched as the Zithran ships pursued the fleeing Caitians. He turned to his crew. "Get us down to that moon. I want answers." The Retribution descended towards the desolate gray surface, scanners probing for the abandoned outpost. Marcus felt a flicker of doubt. Was he leading his crew into a trap? But he thought of Mira, of the colonies burning, of the war consuming everything he held dear. He had to know the truth. The landing party assembled in the shuttle bay, checking weapons and gear. Marcus joined them, his face grim. "I don't know what we're going to find down there," he said quietly. "But whatever it is, we'll face it together. For Earth, for humanity, for Mira." His soldiers nodded, purpose etched on their faces. No matter what awaited them on that lonely moon, they would not falter. They were humanity's best hope. The shuttle lifted off, angling towards the coordinates Zorax had provided, towards answers, and perhaps towards a chance to end this bloody war once and for all. The USS Retribution shuddered violently as the relentless Caitian bombardment tore through its faltering shields. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles, and the stench of burnt circuitry filled the bridge. Marcus squeezed the armrests of his command chair, his nucleus tightening. "Shields down to 15%, the tactical officer shouted over the chaos. "Weapon systems heavily damaged." Marcus stared at the view screen, watching the massive Caitian dreadnoughts closing in like hungry predators. They were outgunned and outmatched, and he knew it. "Helm, take us into the moon's canyons," Marcus ordered, his voice steady despite the desperation clawing at his gut. "Use the terrain to evade those ships." The Retribution dove towards the moon's rocky surface, its hull groaning under the strain. The Caitian ships pursued, their weapons fire crashing against the canyon walls in brilliant explosions. The human ship wove through the treacherous maze of stone, narrowly avoiding collision. But even as they momentarily evaded destruction, the damage reports flooded in. "Life support failing on decks 7 through 12, an officer reported grimly. "We have hull breaches in sections 4 and 9. Casualty reports coming in from all decks." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, the weight of the lives lost pressing down on him. But he couldn't afford to dwell on the grief. Not now. "Find a place to set her down," he commanded. "We need to buy time to plan our next move." The Retribution limped into a narrow ravine, settling onto the uneven ground with a bone-jarring thud. The crew scrambled to seal hull breaches and triage the wounded, while Marcus gathered his officers. "We can't hide here forever," he said grimly. "The Caitians will hunt us down. Our only chance is to find that Zithran outpost and pray it has the answers we need." He turned to his XO, Lieutenant Nadia Ivanova. "Nadia, I need you to stay with the ship. Keep our people safe." Nadia nodded, her eyebrows furrowed. "Aye, sir. We'll hold the line." Marcus assembled a small away team, checking their weapons and gear. They had to travel light and fast. As the team trekked out into the moon's harsh landscape, the unforgiving terrain seemed to press in from all sides. Jagged rocks tore at their boots, and the thin atmosphere left them gasping for breath. Suddenly, a piercing shriek echoed through the canyons. The team whirled, raising their weapons as a pack of vicious predators emerged from the shadows, all fangs and claws. Marcus fired, his plasma rifle cutting down the lead creature, but more poured in, driven by hunger and desperation. The team fought viciously, back to back, as the beasts swarmed them. Claws raked armor, and teeth flashed in the dim light, but the humans held their ground, their training and grit unbreakable. As the last creature fell, Marcus wiped the sweat and grime from his brow. The moon's dangers were just getting started, but he pushed forward, his sister's face haunting his thoughts. Hours later, as the team neared the coordinates of the outpost, a glint of metal caught Marcus's eye. There, hidden beneath a towering peak, was the entrance to the Zithran facility. They stepped inside, weapons ready, as ancient lights flickered to life. The air was stale, undisturbed for centuries. In the heart of the outpost, they found it, a vast database, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. With trembling hands, Marcus accessed the files, the truth spilling across the screens. The rogue scientist Zoran, the manipulated war, the murdered innocents, all for a madman's twisted beliefs. Marcus felt rage and revulsion rise like bile in his throat. And then, the final revelation. The hidden weapons, the seeds of galactic annihilation scattered among the stars. Marcus knew they had to warn Earth, had to stop this nightmare before it consumed everything. He turned to his team, urgency etched on every face. But as they raced back to the Retribution, hearts pounding, the scene that greeted them was one of devastation. The Caitians had found their ship, and they were not merciful. The Retribution lay in flaming ruins, its hull shattered, its crew. Marcus couldn't breathe. They were too late. Through the smoke and horror, Marcus spotted a Caitian landing craft, downed in the battle. It was their only chance. He rallied his remaining teammates, their faces grim with shared pain and willpower. They had to reach that shuttle, had to find a way to warn Earth. As they sprinted towards the alien craft, dodging weapons fire and debris, Marcus felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. Zoran's plan was already in motion, and time was running out, but he would not let his sister's death be in vain. He would not let the Zithran's madness consume everything he held dear. Earth had to know the truth. and Marcus would die to deliver it if he had to. The team reached the shuttle, scrambling inside as plasma rounds scorched the hull. Marcus threw himself into the pilot's seat, his hands flying over unfamiliar controls. The craft shuddered as it lifted off, rising above the carnage and ruin. Marcus pointed its nose towards the stars, towards home. But even as they broke orbit, a terrible question haunted him. Had Zoran's plan already gone too far? Were they already too late to stop the annihilation he had set in motion? Marcus gripped the controls tighter, his heart full of grief and grim willpower. He would not stop fighting, not until his last breath. For Mira, for Earth, for the galaxy itself. The shuttle vanished into the void, carrying the last hope of humanity with it. The stolen Cation shuttle shuddered violently as Uko's tractor beam latched on, its energy field crackling across the view screen. Marcus's hands flew over the unfamiliar controls, sweat beading on his forehead. "They've got us!" shouted Reyes, gripping her seat as the shuttle lurched. Marcus's eyes darted across the control panel. There, the hyperdrive initiator. With no time to plot a course, he slammed his palm down on the activation switch. "Hang on!" he yelled. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the hyperdrive engaged, wrenching them free of the tractor beam's grasp. The shuttle bucked and groaned under the strain of the unplanned jump. Moments later, they emerged in an empty system, the shuttle's engines sputtering. Marcus let out a shaky breath. "Status report," he ordered. "Shields at 15%, weapons offline," reported Chen, scanning the readouts. "But we're alive." Marcus nodded grimly. "Let's make this bucket combat ready. We've got Zithran tech to integrate." For hours, they worked tirelessly, jury-rigging the alien systems. Marcus's hands ached as he spliced power conduits, knowing Uko's forces were hunting them. Finally, the upgrades were complete. "Setting course for Earth," Marcus announced, activating the cloaking device. They hadn't made it far when alarms blared. Smoke poured from a ruptured hyperdrive coupling. "We need to set down for repairs," Chen said. "There's a mining colony on that asteroid." As they approached the grimy outpost, a familiar voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessel. State your business." Marcus's eyes widened. "Jax? Is that you old bastard?" A gruff laugh. "Marcus? What the hell are you doing out here?" Minutes later, they stood face to face in the colony's dingy hangar bay. Jax, his beard grayer and face more weathered than Marcus remembered, clasped his arm. "You look like shit," Jax said, grinning. Marcus managed a weary smile. "Feel worse. We need repairs. Fast." Jax's expression hardened. "I'll help, but I need something in return. Bornathi pirates are planning a raid. We could use some military expertise." Before Marcus could respond, klaxons blared. "Incoming ships!" a miner shouted. "Looks like they're early," Jax growled, unholstering his weapon. The battle was chaos. Marcus and his team fought alongside Jax's miners, plasma rounds scorching the metal walls. They held the line at airlock after airlock as Bornathi marauders tried to breach the colony. A savage firefight erupted in the main cargo bay. Marcus dove behind a stack of crates as Bornathi fire tore through the air. He popped up, squeezing off precise shots that dropped 2 pirates. Nearby, Jax bellowed orders to his miners, organizing a savage counterattack. Slowly, they pushed the Bornathi back. As the last pirate fell, Marcus sagged against a wall, exhausted. But their victory was short-lived. "Comms are fried," Jax reported grimly. "The bastards took out our long-range transmitter." Marcus felt a cold pit in his stomach. He couldn't warn Earth about Zoran's weapons. As Jax's team finished repairing the shuttle, proximity alarms shrieked. A Cation stealth ship decloaked, weapons charging. "They found us," Marcus said, his mind racing. His eyes fell on the salvaged Zithran tech. "I have an idea." Working feverishly, he wired the cloaking device to overload, creating a makeshift EMP. As the Cation ship opened fire, Marcus hit the detonator. A wave of electromagnetic energy washed over them. The Cation vessel went dark, drifting helplessly. "Time to go," Marcus said, clasping Jax's arm one last time. They blasted off, laden with supplies from the miners. But as they accelerated away from the asteroid, Marcus knew the real fight was just beginning. He laid in a course for Cation space, his lips pursed. "We're taking the fight to them," he told his team. "We're going to steal their flagship." Little did Marcus know. Light years away, Zorax's sleek Zithran vessel sliced through the void, closing in on their position. The Zithran commander's eyes gleamed with hidden purpose as he pursued the humans carrying secrets that could shatter the galaxy. The stakes were clear. Marcus had one shot to expose the truth and stop Zoran's plan. Failure meant the end of everything. The stolen Cation shuttle glided silently through the void, its sleek form barely visible against the starry backdrop. Marcus's hands danced over the controls, eyes fixed on the looming shape of Krath's orbital shipyards. Massive skeletal structures sprawled across the planet's horizon, jam-packed with construction arms and half-finished warships. "Approaching outer defense perimeter," Chen whispered, hunched over the sensor display. "Patrol craft at 270. Marcus adjusted course, weaving between debris fields and maintenance drones. The shuttle's engines hummed softly as they closed in on a colossal gantry jutting from the main shipyard complex. "Initiating docking sequence," Marcus announced, fingers flying across the unfamiliar Cation interface. He input the stolen Zithran codes, watching tensely as authentication protocols cycled. A muted chime signaled their success. Magnetic clamps engaged with a dull thud, securing the shuttle to the gantry's underbelly. Marcus rose from the pilot's chair, his muscles protesting after hours of tension. He turned to his team, their faces etched with equal parts willpower and fear. "I'm going in alone," he said, grabbing the salvaged Cation pressure suit. "Keep the engines hot. If anything goes sideways, you get out of here, understand?" Reyes nodded grimly. "We've got your back, sir. Good hunting." The airlock cycled, and Marcus stepped into the void. He activated the suit's thrusters, maneuvering carefully through a labyrinth of pipes and conduits. A service hatch loomed ahead, its access panel glowing faintly in the starlight. Another stolen code, another moment of breathless anticipation. The hatch slid open, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. Marcus slipped inside, the artificial gravity taking hold as he removed his helmet. He moved swiftly through the maze-like passages, pausing at intersections to consult the rudimentary map gleaned from the Zithran data. The distant hum of machinery grew louder as he neared the shipyard's nerve center. A pair of Cation technicians rounded a corner, engrossed in animated conversation. Marcus flattened himself against the wall, barely daring to breathe as they passed within arm's reach. Their tails swished lazily, oblivious to the human intruder in their midst. The command hub's blast doors loomed ahead, a final obstacle. Marcus surveyed the area, noting the security cameras tracking lazy arcs across the corridor. He timed his approach carefully, slipping through their blind spots with practiced ease. The hub itself was a cavernous chamber, banks of monitors and holographic displays filling the space with an eerie blue glow. Marcus's eyes widened as he took in the sheer scale of the operation displayed before him. There, dominating the largest screen, was a wireframe schematic of Uko's new flagship. The behemoth dwarfed anything Marcus had ever seen, its weapons batteries alone larger than entire cruisers. He shook off his awe, focusing on the task at hand. Fingers flying across the nearest console, Marcus initiated the override sequence. Warning klaxons blared as decompression protocols engaged throughout the shipyard. On the monitors, Marcus watched Cation workers fleeing in panic, sealed bulkheads slamming shut behind them. He gritted his teeth, pushing aside the guilt. This was war, and he couldn't afford mercy. With the shipyard in chaos, Marcus turned his attention to the flagship itself. He vented its construction bays, watching the massive vessel go dark as life support failed. Pulling the teleporter from his belt, Marcus took a deep breath. This was the point of no return. He punched in the coordinates for the flagship's bridge and hit the activation switch. Reality twisted. reforming into the cavernous command center of the Caitian dreadnought. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across banks of dormant consoles. Marcus wasted no time, sprinting to the helm station. His hands flew across the controls, coaxing the massive ship to life. Engines rumbled deep in its core as Marcus disengaged the docking clamps. The viewport filled with the confused swarm of Caitian patrol craft, caught completely off guard by the flagship's sudden activation. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile as he brought the dreadnought's weapons online. Beams of superheated plasma lashed out, swatting aside the smaller ships like insects. He punched in a random set of hyperspace coordinates, praying they wouldn't lead straight into a star. The stolen Colossus surged forward, tearing free of the shipyard's gravitational pull. Behind him, Krath's orbital defenses opened fire, their shots splashing harmlessly against the flagship's impenetrable shields. Marcus's fingers tightened on the controls as the hyperdrive spooled up. The stars elongated into brilliant streaks, and the Caitian homeworld vanished behind him in a burst of pseudo-motion. He sagged in the oversized command chair, allowing himself a moment of relief. But as the adrenaline faded, a new worry took hold. Where would they emerge? And what forces would be waiting for them when they did? The Harbinger's bridge hummed with tension as Marcus surveyed his assembled strike team. Reyes, Chen, and a dozen other hardened Earth Fleet veterans stood at attention, their faces etched with grim focus. "Our target is a derelict Zithran facility on Crionus," Marcus explained, gesturing to the holographic display. "Intel suggests it houses one of Zoran's weapon caches. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we secure those weapons before anyone else can." The massive dreadnought slipped into the Crionus system, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to conventional sensors. But as they neared the barren world, proximity alarms blared. "Multiple contacts," Chen shouted from his station. "Bornathi signatures. Looks like stragglers from the asteroid raid." Marcus's hands flew over the weapons controls. "Not today," he growled. Beams of superheated plasma lanced out from the Harbinger's cannons, catching the Bornathi pirates completely off guard. Their smaller ships erupted into balls of fire and twisted metal, unable to withstand the dreadnought's overwhelming firepower. With the immediate threat neutralized, Marcus led his team to the launch bay. They piled into sleek assault shuttles, engines thrumming as they prepared to pierce Crionus's turbulent atmosphere. The moment they breached the cloud layer, all hell broke loose. Caitian ground-to-air defenses lit up the sky, filling the air with searing energy bolts and missiles. "Evasive maneuvers," Marcus barked into his comm. The shuttles corkscrewed and jinked, narrowly avoiding streams of deadly fire. They touched down hard amidst a hail of debris. Marcus was first out the hatch, plasma rifle at the ready. "Push forward," he shouted as Caitian troops swarmed their position. The air filled with the acrid smell of ozone as both sides exchanged fire. Marcus ducked behind a twisted piece of alien machinery, feeling the heat of near misses singe his armor. He popped up, squeezing off precise bursts that dropped 2 Caitian soldiers. Inch by bloody inch, they fought their way across the blasted landscape. Marcus's team moved like a well-oiled machine, covering each other's advances and exploiting every scrap of cover. Finally, they reached the sealed entrance to the underground facility. Its quantum shielding shimmered defiantly, impervious to their weapons. "Harbinger, this is ground team," Marcus called. "We need some heavy firepower on our position." The dreadnought's main gun spoke, unleashing precisely targeted salvos that shook the very bedrock. Fissures spiderwebbed across the ground, and with a thunderous crack, the earth split open. Marcus led the charge into the breach, descending into inky darkness. Emergency lights flickered to life, revealing a cavernous chamber filled with alien technology. "By all that's holy," Reyes whispered, her eyes wide. Row upon row of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing the perfectly preserved form of a Zithran. But it was the central pedestal that drew Marcus's attention, a collection of devices that pulsed with barely contained energy. "The antimatter weapons," he breathed. "Secure them now." As his team moved to collect their prize, a proximity alarm shrieked. Outside, the sky filled with Cation warships. Uko's reinforcements had arrived. "Back to the shuttles," Marcus ordered. "Move it!" They sprinted back to the surface, antimatter weapons and unconscious Zithrans in tow. The Harbinger swooped low, laying down suppressing fire as the strike team scrambled aboard. No sooner had they cleared the atmosphere than Uko's flagship opened fire. The Harbinger shuddered under the assault. "Hyperdrive now," Marcus commanded. The stars blurred into streaks of light as they made their desperate escape. But even as they plunged into the swirling depths of hyperspace, Marcus knew the true battle was just getting started. The Harbinger's hull groaned as it plunged deeper into the nebula's swirling crimson depths. On the bridge, Marcus gripped the command chair, his nucleus tightening as he watched the ancient Zithran dreadnought's engines flare ahead of them. "Zorax, how much farther?" he barked into the comm. The Zithran's gravelly voice crackled back. "We approach the coordinates. Maintain your current vector." Marcus nodded to Chen at the helm. "You heard him. Stay on course." Turning to Reyes, he said, "How are those repairs coming?" She shook her head, fatigue etched on her face. "We've patched the worst of it, but we're held together with spit and prayers, sir." "It'll have to do," Marcus replied. He stood, stretching muscles knotted from hours of tension. "I'm heading to interrogate our guests. Keep me updated." The Harbinger's brig hummed with containment fields. 3 Zithran scientists huddled in separate cells, their elongated limbs twitching nervously as Marcus entered. "Let's try this again," he said, facing the eldest of the trio. "Where are Zoran's weapon caches?" The Zithran's compound eyes flickered. "We've told you nothing." Marcus leaned in close, his voice low and dangerous. "Your loyalty is admirable, but Zoran is dead, and his plan will destroy everything, including your own people. Now talk." Hours passed in a haze of threats and bargaining. Finally, one of the younger Zithrans broke. "There's a shipyard," he chittered, mandibles quivering, "building weapons that should not exist. Antimatter warheads with quantum singularities at their core." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Where?" "The Zithran input coordinates into a datapad with trembling appendages. But you don't understand. These weapons, they can shatter reality itself." Alarms blared throughout the ship. Marcus sprinted to the bridge, the Zithran's words echoing in his mind. Chen's face was ashen as he reported, "Sir, we've located the shipyard, but Cation scouts are converging on our position." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a sea of stars distorted by gravitational eddies. At its heart hung a massive construction array, ringed by a shimmering radiation belt. And closing fast, the sleek, predatory shapes of Uko's warships. "Battle stations," Marcus roared. "All hands, prepare for combat." The void erupted in fire as 3 fleets collided. Plasma beams lanced between capital ships, while swarms of fighters danced and died in the space between. The Harbinger shuddered under repeated impacts, its shields flaring. Marcus's fingers flew across tactical displays. "Reyes, prep boarding teams. We're taking that shipyard. Chen, keep us in the fight." He watched as assault shuttles streaked from the Harbinger's launch bays, weaving through the chaos towards the automated facility. On another screen, the Harbinger's main guns spat hellfire at the Cation battleships. Zorax's voice cut through the din. "Marcus! The Zithran scientists! They've broken free!" Before Marcus could respond, a blinding flash filled the view screen. Where Cation ships had been, a yawning hole in space-time swallowed everything in its path. "What the hell was that?" Marcus demanded. Zorax's reply was grim. "They've overloaded the shipyard systems. We must withdraw immediately." Marcus saw the telltale ripples of a forming shockwave. "All units, fall back. Prepare for emergency jump." The Harbinger's engines howled as they tore free from the battle. Just as they breached hyperspace, Marcus caught a glimpse of the subspace blast obliterating everything left behind. They emerged in a dead system, the Harbinger's hull still glowing from their desperate escape. Marcus sagged in his chair, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. But a ping from the sensor array jolted him back to alertness. "Sir," Chen reported, his voice tight, "we're picking up a massive energy signature. It's like nothing I've ever seen." Marcus stared at the readings in disbelief. There, on a lifeless rogue planet, lay the unmistakable sign of Zoran's ultimate weapon. "Prep a shuttle," he ordered, already moving towards the launch bay. "I'm leading a recon team." "Captain," Reyes protested, "the crew is exhausted. We need time to—" Marcus cut her off. "We don't have time. Every second we waste brings us closer to Armageddon." Minutes later, their shuttle pierced the planet's thin atmosphere. They set down on a desolate plain of black rock, the shuttle's floodlights illuminating a vast geometric shape half buried in the ground. Marcus led his team through a breach in the ancient hull, their helmet lights barely penetrating the gloom. They descended through twisting corridors lined with alien technology beyond comprehension. "My God!" whispered one of the Marines as they entered a cavernous chamber. Suspended at its heart was a pulsing orb of absolute darkness, a captive singularity surrounded by focusing arrays that stretched into infinity. Marcus's comm crackled. "Sir, we've got company. Cation strike teams have breached the upper levels." "Push forward," Marcus ordered. "We have to reach the control center." They fought their way deeper, overcoming automated defenses and holographic guardians that flickered in and out of existence. Each step brought them closer to the singularity's maddening pull. Finally, they reached the central hub. Marcus rushed to the alien console, his fingers dancing across incomprehensible controls as he sought a way to overload the reactor. A roar split the air. Marcus spun to see Uko himself leading a pack of Cation warriors into the chamber. "You're too late, human," the Cation leader snarled. "The weapon is ours." What followed was a battle unlike any Marcus had ever fought. They clashed across walkways suspended over the howling void, exchanging fire as reality itself seemed to warp around them. Marines and Cations alike were swallowed by the encroaching darkness as the singularity's containment began to fail. Marcus saw his opening. With a desperate lunge, he thumped his hand down on what he prayed was an overload sequence. Alarms shrieked as the weapon's power grid went critical. He allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction as Uko's eyes widened in horrified realization. Then the world exploded in light and fury as the singularity broke free. The universe tore itself apart around Marcus. As Uko's final command echoed through the chamber, the stellar annihilator erupted with cataclysmic fury. Containment fields shattered like glass, unable to restrain the surging gravitational forces. Marcus stumbled, the floor buckling beneath his feet. "Everyone out! Now!" His team scrambled for the exit as reality warped around them. Walls twisted, corridors stretched impossibly. The air itself seemed to scream as it was pulled towards the growing singularity. They raced through disintegrating tunnels, dodging falling debris and pockets of twisted space-time. Behind them, an all-consuming darkness devoured everything in its path. "The surface!" Marcus shouted, spotting a faint glimmer of light ahead. They burst into the open air just as the planet's core imploded. The ground heaved violently, fissures spiderwebbing in all directions. Marcus watched in horror as Uko and his Cation warriors vanished, swallowed by the collapsing terrain. "To the shuttle," Marcus ordered, his lungs burning as they sprinted across the disintegrating landscape. They piled into the craft, Marcus slamming the hatch shut as the engines roared to life. Through the view screen, he witnessed the planet tear itself apart, reduced to a swirling maelstrom of debris orbiting a ravenous void. The shuttle lurched as it fought against the immense gravitational pull. Warning klaxons blared as systems failed one by one. Radiation alarms shrieked, the craft's shielding barely holding against the onslaught of deadly particles. "We're not going to make it!" Chen shouted from the co-pilot's seat, his hands flying over sparking controls. Marcus gritted his teeth, pouring every ounce of power into the straining engines. The shuttle shuddered, metal groaning as it was pulled inexorably back towards oblivion. Suddenly, a massive shape materialized before them. Zorax's ancient Zithran vessel fired brilliant beams of energy, carving a path through the gravitational mayhem. The shuttle lurched as it was caught in a tractor beam, yanked clear of the singularity's grasp. Reality twisted, folded, and snapped as they were hurled into slipstream space. When they emerged, Marcus found himself aboard Zorax's ship, surrounded by the battered remnants of his crew. Zorax's compound eyes fixed on Marcus. "You have witnessed the birth of our doom," the Zithran intoned gravely. In the ship's cavernous command center, Zorax laid out the horrifying truth. Holographic displays showed the fledgling singularity's exponential growth, devouring the very fabric of space-time. "Zoran's failsafe," Marcus breathed, the scale of the threat sinking in. He meant to take the entire universe with him. Zorax nodded solemnly. "The harmonic resonance orbital strikers are our only hope. We must use them to alter the fundamental nature of space-time itself." Marcus studied the ancient Zithran technology, its complexity defying human understanding. "And if we fail?" "Then all of creation ends," Zorax replied. "Everything that ever was or will be, consumed by eternal darkness." Marcus looked at his weary crew, then back to the Zithran. "What do you need us to do?" Marcus leaned forward in the shuttle's cramped cockpit, his eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching silhouette of the Ceres base. The command carrier's sleek lines grew clearer with each passing second, its running lights piercing the inky void of space. "Chen, status report," Marcus called out, his voice hoarse from days of recycled air. Chen's fingers danced across the flickering control panel. "Life support at 3%, sir. Hull integrity compromised in sections 2 and 4. We're running on fumes." A crackle of static filled the cabin as a transmission cut through. "Unidentified shuttle, this is Ceres base. Identify yourself and state your intentions." Marcus grabbed the comm unit. "This is Captain Marcus Tremont, authorization code Zulu Tango 937, requesting immediate emergency docking and medical assistance." There was a pause that felt like an eternity. Then, "Authorization confirmed, Captain. Proceed to docking bay 3. Medical teams are standing by." Relief washed over the crew as Chen guided their battered shuttle towards the Ceres base's waiting hangar. The massive bay doors yawned open, bathing them in warm light that felt almost alien after days in the cold darkness of space. As they touched down, Marcus could see figures in Earth Fleet uniforms rushing towards them. The shuttle's hatch hissed open, letting in a rush of fresh, filtered air that made his head spin. Admiral Groves herself stood at the foot of the ramp, her face a mix of concern and disbelief. "Marcus, what in God's name happened out there?" Marcus stumbled down the ramp, his legs weak from days of inactivity. "Admiral, we need to talk. The situation is far worse than we imagined." Groves nodded grimly. "My office now. Your crew will be taken care of." As they walked briskly through the carrier's corridors, Marcus filled Groves in on the basics: Zoran's weapon, the singularity, and their bold strategy with the Zithran resonance technology. In Groves' office, Marcus collapsed into a chair, his body finally giving in to exhaustion. Groves poured him a glass of water, which he gulped down greedily. "So, the immediate threat is neutralized?" Groves asked, her piercing gaze fixed on Marcus. Marcus set down the empty glass. "For now, but the damage to space-time—" "Admiral, we've opened Pandora's box. The resonance beam didn't just destroy the singularity. It's left rifts, tears in the very fabric of reality." Groves' expression darkened. "How bad?" "We don't know the full extent yet, but we've seen things out there. Impossible things. Entire sectors of space warped beyond recognition. Time flowing backwards in localized pockets. And worse, there are entities coming through the rifts, things that shouldn't exist in our universe." A heavy silence fell over the room. Groves turned to look out the viewport, her hands clasped behind her back. "We're not equipped for this kind of threat, Marcus. Our weapons, our tactics, they're useless against an enemy that can bend reality itself." Marcus leaned forward, his voice low but intense. "That's why we need to act fast, Admiral. We have to find a way to seal these rifts before whatever's on the other side gains a foothold in our reality. And we need to do it without causing even more damage to the space-time continuum. Groves turned back to face him, her heart made with purpose. I'll put our best scientists on it immediately. In the meantime, we need to warn the colonies, establish safe zones where reality is still stable. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of their task settle on his shoulders. And what about the Zithrans? Zorax and his people risked everything to help us. We can't abandon them now. Agreed, Groves said. We'll offer them sanctuary and full cooperation. Their knowledge of the resonance technology may be our only hope of fixing this mess. As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Groves rushed to her desk, activating a holographic display. Marcus watched in horror as a swirling vortex of impossible colors tore open in space, barely a light year from their position. It's happening again, Marcus whispered, his eyes fixed on the growing anomaly. Admiral, we're out of time. Whatever's coming through that rift, we need to be ready for it. Groves nodded grimly, already issuing orders through her comm unit. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. As chaos erupted around them, Marcus steeled himself for the fight ahead. They had saved the universe from one threat, only to unleash something potentially far worse. Now, standing on the precipice of a new, terrifying reality, he knew that the true battle for existence itself was only just beginning. The Ceres base shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, the vastness of space stretching before them. On the bridge, Admiral Groves stood rigid, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. The wreckage of Marcus's shuttle drifted lifelessly, its hull pockmarked and scorched. "Dear God," Lieutenant Vega whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's systems. Groves's expression resolute. He tapped his comm badge. "Rescue teams, you have a go. Bring them home." The bridge crew watched in tense silence as heavily shielded recovery pods detached from the Ceres base. They maneuvered through the debris field, latching onto the shuttle's airlock with mechanical precision. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Finally, a crackling voice broke through. "Medical team to bridge, we've got survivors." A collective exhale rippled through the command center. Groves allowed himself a brief moment of relief before striding towards the turbo lift. "I'll be in medical. Lieutenant Vega, you have the bridge." In the sterile confines of the medical bay, Groves watched as Marcus and his team were transferred from the recovery pods. Their bodies lay still, skin pale and mottled with strange, iridescent patterns, telltale signs of extreme radiation exposure. Dr. Evers, her face grim, approached the Admiral. "It's a miracle they're alive at all. The radiation levels, I've never seen anything like it." Groves nodded, his eyes never leaving Marcus's prone form. "Do whatever it takes, Doctor. We need them stabilized." As the medical team worked feverishly, Groves retreated to his ready room. He pored over the data retrieved from the shuttle's logs, each new revelation sending a chill down his spine. Hours later, he stood before his assembled commanders. The air in the war room felt heavy, charged with an almost palpable tension. "Gentlemen," Groves began, his voice low but firm, "what I'm about to tell you will challenge everything we thought we knew about the nature of our universe." He laid out the terrifying truth, the existence of Zoran's weapon, the destabilization of the singularity, and the fracturing of space-time itself. As he spoke, faces around the table grew pale, eyes widening in disbelief. "But, sir," Commander Reese interjected, his voice trembling slightly, "how can we possibly fight something like this? We're talking about the breakdown of reality itself." Groves's response was cut short by an urgent comm alert. "Bridge to Admiral Groves. Sir, you need to get down to medical immediately. It's Captain Tremont." Groves hurried through the corridors, his mind racing. In the medical bay, he found Marcus thrashing on the biobed, his eyes rolled back in his head. "He keeps repeating the same phrase," Dr. Evers explained, her brow furrowed in concern. "We can't make sense of it." Groves leaned in close, straining to hear the whispered words. The navigator guides the sleeper to wake. A chill ran down Groves' spine. He turned to his aide. I want every scrap of data from that shuttle analyzed. Now. Hours passed in a blur of frantic research and heated debates. Finally, a junior scientist burst into Groves' office, clutching a data pad. Sir, we found something in the Zithran archives, something called the Dreaming Continuum. As Groves absorbed the implications of this discovery, a plan began to form. It was desperate, perhaps even suicidal. But faced with the imminent collapse of all existence, what choice did they have? In the medical bay, Marcus's unconscious form was carefully connected to an array of alien technology. Zithran interface nodes pulsed with eerie light, forming intricate patterns across his skin. Groves stood at the foot of the bed, his heart pounding. Are we ready? Dr. Evers nodded grimly. As ready as we'll ever be, sir. Groves took a deep breath. Then let's begin. For all our sakes, I hope this works. With the press of a button, reality itself seemed to warp around them. Marcus's body arched off the bed, his eyes snapping open to reveal swirling vortexes of impossible colors. And then, in a blinding flash of light, Marcus Tremont's consciousness slipped free of its mortal tether and plunged into the unfathomable depths of the dreaming continuum.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.